Do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, howdy, folks. How are you tonight? I hope you're doing okay. I'm flicking around trying to get screens up and whatnot. I've had a bit of a lighting failure, so that's why we're sort of half in shadow and half not tonight. Fun all round, really. How was your weekend? Got to say, mine hasn't been terribly flash. Been as crook as a dog. And still not feeling terribly well. But I'll go for as long as I can tonight. There's a little bit to chat about. And, well, I guess we'll chat about it, shan't we? A little bit of housekeeping. Paul, thank you. I got your gift today. I can't get it from where I've put it at the moment, but Paul sent me a magnificent educational Bible today, which I've not really had the opportunity to peer all the way through yet, but I'm looking forward to having a look at it. And your letter, mate. Thank you very much for taking the time to write that. I appreciate it. Spazza, good to see you in the house, mate. And Paul Revere, who was first in tonight, not Paul Bartlett, who sent me the good book. Also to the folks who've reached out to me for some LifeWave X39 patches, sent those off to you today. And for the folks who I think I'm right up to date, might have 2, maybe 3 left to send when I get some new holders, but pretty confident that I'm almost up to date with everybody's Byron Bob orders. So if you would like some Byron Bobs, we can help you out. And with our magnificent little holder, of which I don't have mine near me at the moment, I don't know where I'll put it. But you've seen them, you know what they look like. And if you would like one for yourself, or maybe you'd like 1 or 2 for you and your significant other, or maybe you'd like to give them away as Christmas presents, which a lot of people are actually doing, we can help you out with that. So Carl at vofhq.com, and we will do what we can to help you out there. First in the house is 100% right, Paul. You've done well. The lovely Michelle is in the house too, and Aussie Sue. And, you know, Aussie Sue always has the message of the day for us, folks. We do really need your likes and your subscribes. We do need your comments as well, because that does make a huge difference in the algorithm, particularly if you're not watching the show live and you put a comment in after the show. Always keen and do read your comments. I don't reply to a great deal of them, which I probably should do, but I find I get into elongated conversations that can take my day away. And that gets a little bit difficult. So I don't get involved too much in the conversations, but I'm being told I should. So you might see me floating around there a little bit more as well. Tony, nice to have you in the house too, mate. The lovely Rachel, and I hope JFK is doing well. JFK had a snip the other day, so he's now sort of barking in an octave higher, but I think he'll be doing all right. He's got a couple of new friends, I think, coming to stay this week or maybe early next week. And that'll keep him entertained. So little Jimmy's doing all right in Tassie. So we're doing well. I hope Black Sheep is doing okay too. And thoughts are still with Bob too on the loss of his father in WA. Toxic, nice to have you in the house again tonight. Scotty, the news. You're retiring at the end of this year. Well done. Congratulations. I hope you haven't got more than $3 million in super, although if you're retiring at the end of this year, you'll probably get out okay. The treasurer today, as soon as Albo Sleazy got on the plane and departed the country, this bloke has got into cabinet and changed the deal somewhat with what they were planning to do with our super accounts, particularly for those super accounts over $3 million. Now, that probably doesn't affect you. It certainly doesn't affect me. They have made a few changes to that whole thing. I'm not completely over it, and Cass and Mary Jane are both at a seminar at the moment, so I can't and haven't had the opportunity to speak with them for what it really means. However, my basic understanding of it is that he has eased some of the angst that was being spread around about the extra taxes and whatnot that they were going to put on people with over $3 million. Now they've changed that. They've indexed it to inflation, and they've put in another level, I think, of taxation for people with super balances over $10 million, meaning that they're going to take 40% of that. They'll take 30% if you've got anywhere between $3 and $10 million. And if you've got over 10 in your super account, they will take 40% of it. Whew. I mean, I don't know how many people you know that have got 10 million bucks in there and how many that's really going to affect, but it's the bracket creep, it's the inflationary creep. We all think it's, never going to affect us, and it probably won't affect us, but it will drastically affect our kids, our grandkids, and their kids. So be aware those changes are being made, and I'll try and get Cass or Mary Jane on for a chat at some stage when they return from the seminar, so we can talk about that a little bit further. The other big news of today happened in Israel, of course, where Donald Trump has only just touched down in the last half an hour or so. He's arrived in Israel for what will be a big day of speeches and backpatting and backslapping and much love, I guess, for the 7 returned hostages that have come out of Gaza today and have been returned via the Red Cross to the IDF before then being taken back across the border into Israel and reunited with their families. I dare say they'll all be in hospital at this point in time. There are 20 hostages, well, 13 left now, let's say. I don't know why they don't release them all on one day, but they like to eke this out, and they do so in a very PR-driven manner. That's almost a parade when they're bringing them up out of the grounds, underground from where they've been for the last couple of years. And they parade them through the streets, put them or hand them over at least to the Red Cross, who then drive them out of, what could only be described as the Hamas stronghold, I suppose, and return them to the IDF. But they're only doing like a few a day. So Trump has turned up today, ostensibly, I think, to take credit for this. And he probably deserves to. He's had a great deal of input into making this happen. What the truth of what is happening is still a bit murky to me. I'm not sure that Israel and Donald Trump have plans of rebuilding Gaza in anything other than a controlled way. Yes, it'll be beautiful. Yes, it'll be wonderful. But will the Palestinians still get to live there? According to Trump, yes, but the place has just been leveled. Israel have been merciless in their destruction. So you may as well got to start from scratch. And even now, when there is nothing left, no houses, no tall buildings, nothing left in Gaza, even now, Palestinian refugees are making their way back along the beaches, along the coastline, back into their country. So they're taking the ceasefire for what it is. They believe it's going to happen and hold. And that is one of the other things Trump has said. He is in Israel to make sure that this ceasefire holds. Okay, so that ceasefire is holding. We have an awful lot of aerial refueling tankers in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia, and I want to say in Germany. Well, in Qatar is what interests me, because that's where the vast majority of the aerial refuelers went. Now, you might remember that not all that long ago, Qatar was attacked by Israel, and they were trying to kill emissaries from Hamas who were negotiating the peace deal. And this peace deal was being brokered by the Qataris. Israel didn't manage to kill anybody. They did manage to blow up a building, I think killed a couple of innocents, but didn't actually get any of the Qatari or Hamas negotiating teams. Well, that may have changed yesterday. This is a car accident. 3 Qatari diplomats were killed in that car crash, and these are the 3 of them. Now, those 3 gentlemen and 1 other who was with them were all involved in the negotiations taking part between Hamas, Israel, and other Arab nations in the Middle East. And, all of a sudden, these blokes get nailed in a car crash, so it seems. Although car crashes in Egypt are not an irregular thing, and I don't know if it's changed, but there used to be a habit of not even bothering to turn your headlights on driving around at night, particularly on the roads out of the cities. Just drive by starlight and by moonlight. Don't bother putting your lights on. And changing lanes just simply mean leaning on the horn. You don't put blinkers on. You don't do anything like that. You just lean on the horn. Interesting place. But anyway, those 3 negotiators have been killed, and now there is a fair amount of angst considering their involvement in what's happened in the whole Hamas-Gaza ceasefire, whether or not this is related in some way. It will be swept under the carpet because neither Israel nor America can afford this to be impacted on the peace process, so to speak. So there'll be much celebrating going on in Israel at the moment, and I would hope potentially some celebrating going on in Palestine. And I wonder what Lydia Thorpe is making of it all. Unless she's sitting in Canberra, with her fire sticks getting ready to torch that place, I don't know that she's going to be of much value. She has certainly come out over the weekend at at her rally, or the rally that she was at in Melbourne on the weekend, and rattled a few cages. Her suggestion was, she didn't say that she would burn the parliament down in so many words. While she did use those words, it was and I think she's explained it quite adequately. It was just a turn of phrase. It wasn't a threat or an implied action. However, you can't be a sitting member in that place and say those sorts of things and not expect to get, your ass handed to you. She doesn't really care. She's had her ass handed to her by just about everybody in that place over the last couple of years, and she has embarrassed herself and probably our nation to a significant level where I doubt she gets any interaction at all in the corridors of Canberra. So until such time as she can become relevant again or become useful, or her vote is needed, then I don't know that dear old Lydia is going to be much help to us at all. Jacinta Napiera-Price, on the other hand, and she and Pauline seem to be pulling on the same rope in the same direction pretty much at the same time. It's encouraging to see. I don't know that they have any agreements in place. I don't know that Jacinta would be happy to play second fiddle in any kind of new party that might be coming forward, although I don't think she would be in a position to be a leader of that party unless it was just her party, in which case we wind up with another group which get minimal votes. All it does is dilute the main Conservative vote when that sort of thing happens. But she might also be the person who can bring everybody back to the table from the Conservative side and start a meaningful conversation about Conservative politics and Conservative representation in this country. Because God knows, those that we used to rely on to be Conservative have been manipulated, I'm being generous, bribed, have taken the bait to do the worst for Australia and the best for themselves and the corporation, which I know makes many of you as sick as it makes me, sadly. I'm just having a bit of a look through your chat just to see if there's anything to have a bit of a natter about. I got an email over the weekend from somebody who watched my show from Friday night, where we talked about the immigration plan that I had, what we could do to help new immigrants come to the country, learn a language, learn a skill, learn about being Australian, what it is to be Australian, learn about, and it'll be hard to learn about our sense of humour, to learn about so many of the little cultural things that Australians have that potentially, if you are unaware of them, might cause you some stress and some anger and all that sort of stuff. Well, I got a very interesting email from somebody over the weekend who'd seen that show, and they want to talk a lot more about it. They think that the plan has some viability, even though I was fairly broad in what I was saying about it. I have thought about it, and actually I did write out a whole proposal for it years ago. I just don't know where I've put it. I'll be on one of the many computers that I've got that have turned to dust somewhere, no doubt. So we might continue down that route and just explore it a bit, because the person who emailed me is someone of note who I would respect the opinion of in this regard. So we'll work on this a little bit further and see whether or not it isn't something that could become a viable option at some stage down the track. But we really do need to look at big infrastructure projects, nation building projects, and not mate building projects like Snowy Mountain 2, which is looking after Turdbull and his mates. Absolute shit fight that thing's turned into. But I think they finally got the tunnel borer going again after bogging it for 2 years. Yeah, bogging it. They drove it into a soggy part of the mountain and it got bogged. Hasn't done anything, but cost money. Cost us a lot of money. Big blowouts, a couple of $1 billion worth of blowouts. But that infrastructure project is not the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about something much larger, the Bradfield project, which will take 20 or 30 years to complete. The high-speed high-speed train idea will take 20 years, 25 years to build across this nation. Now, in that time, we could certainly put through a great deal of immigrants who want to come to Australia and live. We could give them a trade. We could give them the knowledge of the land. We could give them a little cultural appreciation from our side of things. We can give them a footy team, a rugby team, a soccer team. Who knows? We could create a new rugby, football, AFL or soccer team out of these folks who come and work in these areas. We can build regional towns and cities in support of this rail line or the Bradfield project. Towns that will go on and thrive. Many of the folks who will be in those towns during a period where they've come into the country and want to be a part of this, then we've got plenty of workers coming for the next 25 or 30 years. We have plenty of good trained people here in Australia, and the infrastructure and the ability to plan how to manage it, how to train these people. And the good side about it, well, there are many good sides to this, but one of the benefits that I believe is of significant value to the Australian people is that if you are not here genuinely to, do better for yourself, to do better for your family, to get a trade, get a good job, and really make a go of it here in this country, if you're just here to bring your hate or your angst or your division or whatever, then we're going to see it in those job sites. All right. If you're the kind of animal that comes home and rapes your children and beats your wife, then you're not the kind of person that we want in Australia. And those people who are coming in on this kind of a deal would know that if you are going to go out and carry on, if you're going to try and escape, if you're going to bust out, if you're going to do this, if you're going to push against the entire system, then we will need to seriously look at whether or not you're a suitable candidate to stay in the country. And that might be immediately throwing them out, turfing them back and deporting them to the country that they came from because they simply refuse to fit in, do the work, or be trained to our standards, or if they choose to continue with their previous vocation, which might have been standing over people or just figuring out ways to rip them off. That's not going to work here, and you will not be able to become an Australian if you exhibit those sorts of traits while you're working your way across one of the greatest infrastructure projects Australia could ever have, and being a very proud part of it. There'll be a lot of Australians working on that too, don't get me wrong. But those roles might be a little bit different. Those roles might be training roles. Those might be leadership roles, at least for a certain period of time. But once we've got folks living along these train lines or water routes, they will automatically generate towns because you've got to get stuff out there to build it. So you call it staging. If you're going to build a train line, well, you can use that train line to the bits you've built to shuttle yourself further up the line, in theory. So there is a great way that we can help build the country. We can give these new Australians a great opportunity to come to our country, to be looked after, to be educated, to be, I don't mean like they're not educated now, but to be brought up to Australian skill levels or standards or whatever. They also get to learn about Australian culture. I don't know if that means that, every Wednesday night's a movie night where they get to watch Crocodile Dundee or, Bazza McKenzie. God help us. But there are things that people who want to come to Australia should learn and do learn. It just takes them a lot longer when they blend into the community as soon as they walk out of the gates of the airport. This way, you will get a very comprehensive Australian education. You will not be allowed. It'll be the politics that won't be allowed. The politicians won't be allowed to farm these people for votes because you won't be able to vote while you're working on the pipeline. You'll have to wait until you are a citizen to do that. So we can make sure that the quality of citizen we get is that the kind of citizens we want in this country, the kind of people that we want. And I'm saying citizens just because it's easy for many to understand. If I was saying sovereigns, well, it's the same kind of deal. But there are many people who still can't tell the difference, even though they claim to know it, and still can't tell the difference between what is a sovereign and what is a citizen. And most of that appears to be in our media and educational facilities, but they are very sad. Paul Orchard, nice to see you in, mate. I haven't seen you in for a couple of days. Maybe I've just missed your name. Maria's in the house too. So I'm just scrolling down here, folks, just to see what else there is. If there are some questions. Silver. Yes, Tony, what a day it has been. So $79.10. Hang on, let me just refresh that. $78.78 is the current spot price for silver, showing at Ainsley Bullion. Gold is $6,252.79. Today, silver has been sitting over $80 an ounce for most of the day. It kicked off and bounced over 80 pretty much at the open of business this morning. I have seen it up as high as 82.5 today, and now at least at Ainsley's it's dropped back to 78.78. But some of the others might still be showing around $80 for the spot price for an ounce of silver. Why is it all doing this? Why is it continuing to go up? Well, it's got a lot to do with what's going on in America at the moment. The American dollar is dying a quite natural death. Trump knows it's dying. In fact, I think he's aided it in its ill health for the last little while. Major transactions are now taking place in gold and the gold-backed Chinese yuan, and that's probably going to become a more mainstream piece of knowledge before the end of this year. There will be a lot more bloodletting, I think, in the next few weeks before the end of this month. And that could come in many forms. I don't think it's going to come in forms of war with Ukraine, with Russia, with China, with NATO, or indeed with what's going on in Gaza and Israel. Although I wouldn't trust the Israelis to hold the ceasefire, and I'm sure that's part of the reason why Donald Trump is there, because he doesn't trust them either. That is going to turn into this week in Israel is going to be a very interesting time, biblical, some might say, and it is probably a good time for you to get out your Bible and have a bit of a look at some of the predictions. All you got to do is read Revelations and weigh up some of what you read versus some of what you hear Donald Trump saying, and it might make your eyes pop a little bit. G'day, Donna Lee. Haven't seen you in the house for a little while. Lovely to see you. Sunflower, God love you. I hope you and Rick are doing well too. I'll be up your way very shortly. Thank you, Chris, for saying thank you. I appreciate it. If you get something out of this, mate, great. I appreciate you for just coming along and being part of the family. There are so many of us that, and really, I was sitting, because I haven't been well today, and I was sitting here thinking, will I do a show tonight or not? And I know how many of you get, I don't know, upset, pissed off at me, whatever, if I don't do a show. So I am. Some days there are things going on in my life that just make it a lot harder for me to do it. And the last 2 days I've been as crook as a dog. I don't know what I've eaten or done to do what I've done to myself, but it hasn't been terribly pleasant. I'll give you the drum. Just trying to read. So sorry, Rach. Just reading. So, okay, Jimmy was broken from 3 till 1 a.m. Poor little bugger. Couldn't rest with his cone. Of course, he'd have a cone on his head. Refuses to move with the cone on. Result, no cone. Scoffed food at 1 o'clock. Finally, like it was his last meal. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, the cones can be a bit of a bugbear, can't they? I hope he's all right now. He doesn't bark. That's a good thing. All right. So I can't see anybody asking me any questions there. What I did want to talk to you about, though, saying how wonderful the family is here. There is a modicum of interest, shall we say, in going on a cruise in late May or June of next year. The cruise would be a 4-day cruise, a cheap one, out of Brisbane, basically going up to, I don't know if it's Airlie Beach or Cairns or thereabouts, and back again over the course of 4 days, 3 nights at sea, I think, and you arrive back on the morning of the 4th. These are, from what I understand, pretty nice, short little cruises. You don't have to worry too much about big seas, because my understanding is once you get up past sort of Fraser Island, they might be inside the reef. So the waves will be significantly less if there were waves. But these days, these ships are very, very stable. I've only ever been on one cruise, and that was to New Zealand and back. I was very fortunate. And it was a very rough sea on the way back. I have to tell you that you wouldn't have known how rough it was unless you were looking at the contents of the swimming pools, which was sloshing itself out of one side, one end to the other. But because of these big stabilizers and things that they have on these boats, they just don't rock or roll. I mean, you might get a little bit of the up and down occasionally when you heave through a big wave. But even still, if you're in the middle of the boat, you don't feel that. So look for a bed in the middle of the boat is what I've been told. But if you would like to be part of that, please email me your interest. I just need your name, how many of you think there might be coming, and your email address. That's really all I need at the moment. I was going to have a talk over the weekend with real estate agent, with a travel agent about booking this for us, but because I was crook, I didn't get around to it. So I'm hopeful of getting down the hill in the next couple of days. I've got to go and see my mum, and I've got to move a bit of stuff. So hopefully I will be able to poke in and catch up with somebody at a travel agent, and we might get something more tangible put together. But we'd love to have you, and I threw the idea out of putting a Voice of Freedom band together while we were on the cruise to one of the blokes that I suggested we might want to cruise with, and he thinks that's a great idea. So you never know. If we get enough people and enough of them have either a singing voice or can play a musical instrument, we might have ourselves a little jam session on the boat and have something a bit fun to come and share when we get back, which I would love to be able to do. Would love to be able to do it. Albo Sleazy has departed the country, and apparently Australians are furious about it. Really? Do we really care? I mean, do we listen to him anyway when he comes out? And I don't know, has he gone to India? That's where I'm starting to think he may have gone. Everybody else in Labor has gone there in the last little while for a look. If it's not there, it's China. However, he has gone for a holiday, departed the country on the 13th of October. He has a meeting with Donald Trump in the White House on the 20th of October. So, don't know where his holiday might be. One might assume he's gone to brush up a little bit. And what is it you used to call when you were studying for an exam? Swatting for an exam. He might be swatting and hoping not to get swatted when he sits down with Donald Trump on the 20th. He has agreed to a public televised press conference. The only times we've seen those recently have been with Zelensky, which didn't go so well, and Cyril Ramaphosa from South Africa, who was confronted with a lot of vision and a lot of truth coming out of his nation, and Trump put him right on the spot. Now, I believe Trump feels as strongly about the anti-free speech laws that are being introduced by this government and the rather strange Privacy or Freedom of Speech Commissioner, or whatever the hell she's called, Inman Grant. I believe she has been called to America as well, and will be meeting up with Albo Sleazy over there at some point with his entourage, because there will be meetings being held with her too. Trump doesn't like the idea that free speech is being regulated, I guess is the way to describe that. He is very, very anti-regulating free speech or putting any sorts of constraints on it at all. And I think that he will use the tariffs and other pressures that he can apply to Australia to exert pressure on the government to rethink their introduction of this digital and whatever ID system they're trying to bring in December. They also have other legislation that they're bringing back in, which is basically the same legislation that got thrown out last year at around about this time or December time last year. But they have reworded it slightly, dropped a couple of things, put a few more weird ones in, and they are bringing that back to the floor, which will happen, I think, at the end of November for a vote. That's another very dangerous vote for the people and a very, very helpful vote if it gets through for the government, because it will in part limit our access to freedom of information. Now, we have a Freedom of Information Commissioner who is reluctant, to say the least, to share anything from the Freedom of Information Office. There are quite often, and many of you have gone through this process, I know, quite often you pay your money, you submit, and you wait for months to get any kind of a reply. And usually the reply that you get is, oh, yes, well, we're onto it. We'll get back to you at the appropriate time when we've discovered something we can give you. And then you'll wait another little while, and then somebody will write you another letter that says, oh, well, yes, we've found these, but because of this reason or that reason, or I'm not going to give you a reason, I'm not going to give you this access, or I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to redact it all and all that kind of crap. That sort of shit has to stop. The redacting of these sorts of documents has to stop. I understand in a business sense for confidentiality and all that, but we are looking at things that have seriously buggered up this country, laws and coercions that have been forced through and are now being hidden by Albo Sleazy's attempt to upgrade. You always know when they say, oh, we're upgrading something, they're not necessarily making it better. They're trying to hide things. And that's exactly what they're doing with this freedom of information bullshit. They are going to make it so much harder for you and I to find any information out about what government is doing behind the scenes. And estimates has proven to be very, very interesting in the last week, because it has shown I think we've all known it for a long time, but this was shown in stark reality, that governments hide things they don't want the people to see in the minutes of the Prime Minister and Cabinet. They hide all this shit under the protection of Cabinet secrecy. And as we know, Labor are particularly good at hiding stuff for years under that rule. I think Bob Hawke put some stuff in for 30 or 40 years, and some of it only just came out recently, where we could actually get the real information of it. Most of these government-induced actions require the blocking of that information for at least 99 years. Now, shouldn't that say something to you, the people? Why is the government allowing 99-year extensions on documents where people would find out the processes that went into the decisions that were made at the time? Well, it's clear back in the day when this used to happen, there was probably a different reason for it. But it's quite clear now that they are doing nefarious things, and they do not want to have us watching them do it. They do not want us being a witness to the corruption, the illegality, the fraud, and what I suspect to be the murders, the public assassinations of credibility in people, the assassinations of character that have been carried out on so many. We can't let that happen, folks. We just can't. And I know we're all a bit chooks with our heads cut off at the moment. There is so much bullshit coming out, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's not with the AI. And it's hard to tell what's real and what's not because there are some governments in this country, and I won't look at you, Victoria, but I am looking at you, Victoria, and others, Western Australia, who are overreaching in the most egregious ways, outrageous ways, where the people are saying that cannot be right. That is not the Australia we live in. And unfortunately, it is right, because in Victoriaistan, you're not living in Australia. You're living in what can be as close to being described as China without describing it as China. Complete with the facial recognition systems, complete with the restraint, moving people from place A to place B. That's all going to, well, you've seen how the police move you when it comes to protests in Melbourne nowadays. The only thing the Melbourne police don't have is a tank, but I'm sure they could arrange it if they really needed to. Maybe they should have taken that up into the bush to try and look for Desi. No sign of Desi yet, apparently. I don't know whether or not Desi's still alive. I think most good money says that Desi hopped a boat and went down a river and disappeared, and is probably somewhere in the Northern Territory by now with a very good-looking beard. But there is still so much carry-on about that. Well, actually, it's interesting that the carry-on about that is subdued in some ways, particularly with the police. The police have scaled back their searches, so they've said. The army will still be out there training and wandering through the bush trying to find him, but there might be the odd helicopter search that goes over now and again. They'll give him time to think that, he's safe from the air at least, get him out from whatever hole or cave he's been in, and then hopefully they'll try and spot him then. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Sadly, he may have passed, but wouldn't it be a hell of a story if he turned up somewhere? And he actually had some video that proved that he didn't shoot anybody. Just saying. Now, I posted a thing on my Facebook the other night. I don't know how many of you have got my Facebook or would be interested in it, but there's a gentleman named Sean McDonald who deserves our respect and our support. He served Australia at its highest levels in operational forces with the SAS, amongst others. And he has been involved in the behind-the-scenes goings-on with Ben Roberts-Smith and a number of those charges that were brought against him. Interestingly, none of those charges would have been brought against him without Andrew Hastie being the whistleblower, supposedly, that was telling all these damning stories of Ben Roberts-Smith. Now, I know people who worked with Ben, and they've described him in various different ways. They've also described some of the things that go on in these areas, to relax. I'm referring here to the shot that you would have seen with them drinking beer out of a leg, out of a artificial leg, which apparently had been claimed off one of the Taliban that they'd found earlier in the day and sent him to Allah. Now, yes, it's very dark. It's very dark humor, but these blokes work in pretty dark places, and these are very hard men with dark senses of humor. And I don't think that that's anything to get too upset about. Some of the lies that have been told about Ben Roberts-Smith some of the obfuscation that has taken part in the trial, particularly that Ben Robert-Smith has been subjected to, and now he's in the middle of the appeals process. I would think that the video that Sean posted and I shared would go some way to helping Ben in his next appeal. I really hope that the courts change before Ben gets to that appeal point, because the courts are very, very controlled, and I suspect that he will have a hard time overturning any appeal until such time as the justice system is brought to heel. And I don't know that we're going to be able to do that in the next little while. We spoke on Friday night about Nasara Jassara, and there was a bit of interesting news popped out over the weekend about Jassara having started out. Now, this gets on to the AI creation of bullshit that I was speaking about before. There is so much AI-created crap coming out at the moment. Going back to Victoria, there is a thing running around on the internet saying that now in Victoria, you won't be able to hold a drink, eat food, smoke a cigarette in the car without incurring a fine. I'm not completely sure about the eating food. I don't think you can eat food in Queensland. Well, you're not meant to. You can smoke. It would be a very brave copper who came along and tried to push that forward, I would think, as a breaking of the law. But in Victoria, there are no such laws, and they're now saying that there are, all this sort of crap. Beautifully AI-generated stories that are just there to create division, or maybe to get someone like me or someone like you to say, oh, I saw this, and start repeating it. Start telling everybody that it's real, and it's not, because that will ramp up the anxiety in the community. And I don't see the point in sharing that sort of shit that ramps up anxiety in our community. It doesn't necessarily bring forward awareness unless you, who've played the trick on the person who believes this, shit, are there to explain to them that it's what it's all about. And most often we're not in that circumstance. So interesting times. You got to use your discernment. Don't believe everything you read, everything you hear, or everything you see. Analyze it. Think about it. Use a critical mind on it. If you think that the skin looks a bit shiny or a bit plastic or whatever, then odds are you are looking at an AI-created image. And it may look and sound all the money like the person it's claiming to be, but it really isn't. I mean, how many Donald Trump things have we got floating around at the moment? Now, did I actually have one of those that I was going to play you? There have been some truly magnificent Donald Trump AI creations lately, and my computer's not going to allow me to play any of them to you because it's locked up for some reason. Bloody hell. All right. Well, I might save that one for tomorrow night, and we'll talk a bit about that then. March for Australia this weekend, coming up on Sunday in all the capital cities and a number of towns and cities around Australia. If you are going to any of those events, please let me know. If you're keen to be a camera for me, all we need is your mobile phone. And if you want to come on and be a reporter for me, a stringer, well, we'll have you on for that too. I think I'll have Tony working again out of Melbourne if he's heading off. And Clayton, I think, is going to be heading off to Brisbane for me. We'll also be able to see, I hope, some faces out of Melbourne and some faces out of Adelaide. We'll see whether or not we can get anybody in Perth. Nobody rang me last time, and I don't know anybody in Perth anymore. So If you happen to be in WA, and I know there are a few of you that watch over in WA, and you happen to be going along to the march this Sunday, then let me know. We might be able to put your phone to very good use there as well. Okay, so this is as weird as I don't seem to be able to bring anything up on the computer here. Maybe I can show you this. Oh, look, that bit works. 5 states, Texas, Utah, Kansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana, are suing Pfizer for knowing and concealing that the vaccine causes myocarditis, pericarditis in failed pregnancies and deaths. That's 10% of US states. Yes, the tide does appear to be turning. There is also some interesting things with Pfizer there. Interesting that 5 states are pushing back against Pfizer, and Donald Trump only last week had Eric Boulia, the head of Pfizer, at the Oval Office, where they were announcing a new joint wonderful deal where Pfizer were bringing their manufacturing back to America, a $70 billion investment in America to create the labs and everything required to make their drugs. That's going to put a little bit of a hole in the investment that Australia has put into this particular field, because we were, up until recently, able to push out a great deal of medications into the US at a much cheaper rate, which made people in America very happy because they were able to get medication at a lesser rate than they could through their normal situations. Well, that's not going to be allowed to happen anymore under Trump's new business plan for Big Pharma. Anything made here in Australia will gather a 100% tariff before it's allowed to be sold into America. And look, the 100% tariff thing is a big stick he is wielding, but he does seem prepared to wield it. We have invested billions of dollars into the big pharma industries in Melbourne and Sydney, and the new CSL laboratory in Melbourne, I believe, is just opened or just about to open. I don't know that I can say that it is, but there is certainly some large suggestions around the community that that particular laboratory has a fair bit to do with adrenochrome production for the Southern Hemisphere, or at least it will when it's built. So I guess we will just wait and see what happens. You might recall we talked about a massive building project on offer from the Victorian government to Indians in Victoria to set up cultural centres. Well, a new Sikh religious school is planned for Sydney's outskirts. Labor have promised millions. I believe that this has been on the drawing board for a little while. And the government are supplying some of the money for it. How much of the money? Well, we'd only find that out after a Freedom of Information request. But the project itself is worth $79 million. So you and I won't be allowed to go there to that. I'm just trying to think if there are places that the Sikhs aren't allowed to go in Australia. Do we have anything that we wouldn't allow anybody else into? Doesn't seem terribly Australian to me. And that's why we want to get out and march. It's not about the people who have come here. It's about the number of people that are coming here. And the Australian government's insistence that they are going to screw our country to death and screw us to death in the process. So, folks, get out this weekend, get wrapped in your flag, and go out and celebrate Australia, what it is to be Australian. Get out, enjoy it, be amongst it, and we should have a hell of a rally. I am pretty pleased to see, finally, that a lot of the criticisms, I think, of Beck Freedom have died down. The NSN have made a public statement saying they're not coming to these rallies, so nobody's got anything to worry about. If they did, you had nothing to worry about with them anyway. You just might not have liked to have heard how they enunciate their feelings. But at the end of the day, there would have been... That's the beautiful thing about free speech. Everybody can say what they want to say. You don't have to listen to it. Nobody ever said you have to agree with it. All you have to do is walk away from it or tolerate it just long enough for it to end. That's all it has to be. But we shall see. Now, I'm just going to leave this up for a second, folks, and I'm just going to have to jump out of my studio and come back again because the whole thing seems to have locked up for a minute. So give me a second. Right, now let's see whether or not that works. Look, it's come back to life. I can scroll my screen again. Bloody wonderful. All right, well, it's 5:02. It's 3 minutes away from the hour, so we might love you and leave you for tonight. I didn't think I was going to talk this long, to be honest. I feel like, well, you don't want to know what I feel like, but it's not good. We'll be back again tomorrow. Have yourself a fabulous day, folks. And if you are doing interesting things tonight, please let it be with gold and silver because you're going to make a lot more money out of it this week. Don't think for one moment that the silver price is done moving. It's breaking records everywhere. So too the gold price. So they've broken through that ceiling of $50 an ounce. And from there, it could go anywhere. The COMEX is still hiding all of that debt and the market is still throwing more debt into it. It cannot go much longer. The US dollar is ready to burst. So, folks, I don't know. There was talk about Jassara over the weekend. Trump brought it up again. I just don't know. I have no faith that it's going to be something we are going to see in the guise that it's been presented to us anytime in the near future. I think sometime over the next 5 years, we will see bits of it start to come in. But until then, I think we're going to be out fighting for every scrap we can get. Absolutely. And while we're out fighting for that, that means we're going to be fighting for homes to rent and to own and to buy, homes to build and roads to drive on, preferably without a bunch of dickheads trying to kill us on them. See you tomorrow night, folks.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!